It's new play day on Shakesyear. Hey! I felt like a Muppet when I did that. We're starting in on Richard III, which is going to be super fun. I think it was one of my Shakespeare teachers used to say, like, Richard III is a good beach read if you're going to do a beach read that happens to be a Shakespeare play. In that, it's a pretty easy play to follow. But anyway, it's a fun one, and it's got lots of monologues in it that I'm sure you've heard before, including this one that kicks off the play. If you haven't heard this, at least the first couple lines before, then I don't know what to say, really, because they're pretty famous. But anyway, Richard, at this point, we get to hear from him. He kicks off the play, and that's the monologue that we're going to start with. But for a little bit of context, Richard at this point is the Duke of Gloucester. His brother Edward is the king because he won the battle against Henry VI. So this play takes place after Henry VI Part 3, but some time has passed. It's not like an immediate pickup, but some time has passed. And if you remember from the Henry plays, from the Henry VI plays, Richard did a lot of murdering. He did a lot of murdering of some big, important people. So he's not necessarily the nicest guy in the world. He is oftentimes portrayed as having a hunchback because there's some historical speculation to say that he was somewhat disfigured, and we don't know in exactly what way, if he had a hunchback or if he had a club foot or if he had a what, we're not exactly sure. But there are references in this opening monologue to him being not the most physically attractive of people. So yeah, his brother Edward is currently the king. His brother George is the Duke of Clarence at the moment. So Clarence is George, and he himself is the Duke of Gloucester. So that's sort of where things are. And he kicks off the play by saying, "Now is the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by this son of York. And all the clouds that lowered upon our house in the deep bosom of the ocean buried. Now are our brows bound with victorious wreaths, our bruised arms hung up for monuments, our stern alarums changed to merry meetings, our dreadful marches to delightful measures. Grim-visaged war hath smoothed his wrinkled front, and now, instead of mounting barbed steeds to fright the souls of fearful adversaries, he capers nimbly in a lady's chamber to the lascivious pleasing of a lute. But I, that am not shaped for sportive tricks, nor made to court an amorous looking-glass, I, that am rudely stamped, and wants love's majesty to strut before a wanton ambling nymph, I, that am curtailed of this fair proportion, cheated of feature by dissembling nature, deformed, unfinished, sent before my time into this breathing world, scarce half made up, and that so lamely and unfashionable that dogs bark at me as I halt by them, why I, in this weak piping time of peace, have no delight to pass away the time, unless to see my shadow in the sun and descant on mine own deformity. And therefore, since I cannot prove a lover, to entertain these fair, well-spoken days, I am determined to prove a villain, and hate the idle pleasures of these days. Plots have I laid, inductions dangerous, by drunken prophecies, libels, and dreams, to set my brother Clarence and the king in deadly hate the one against the other. And if King Edward be as true and just as I am subtle, false, and treacherous, this day should Clarence closely be mewed up about a prophecy which says that G of Edward's heirs the murderer shall be. Dive thoughts down to my soul, here Clarence comes. Brother, good day. What means this armed guard that waits upon your grace? So we get to follow a villain, and he wants to be a villain. That's his his goal in life right now is to be a villain. So he's saying that this is a peaceful time in England, and he doesn't like the fact that it's a peaceful time in England. He thrives most during wartime when things are ugly and gritty and loud and rude and all this sort of stuff. But now that everybody is happy and peaceful, he doesn't have a girlfriend or a lover or anything like that, and he even feels weird like getting undressed in front of whores. He's like, I'm deformed and ugly, and I was born too early, and before like I was finished being made in my mother's womb, I was born too early, all this sort of stuff. He's like, the only things that I have to do is to look at my own shadow and see how gross I am. So since there is no love in my life right now, I'm going to be mean. I'm going to be a villain. So he has started a rumor that someone whose name starts with the letter G is going to kill King Edward. And he has planted this rumor in King Edward's mind, specifically because the Duke of Clarence's real name is George. So he wants to pit the two of them against each other. So at the very end of the speech, the Duke of Clarence, whose name is George, comes in, and he's being led by an armed guard, and that's why he's like, brother, good day, what's this armed guard? And Clarence is like, I'm being taken to jail because Edward got it in his head that somebody whose name starts with G is going to kill him. And since my name is George, they're taking me to the Tower and putting me in prison. And Richard is like, oh, no, this can't possibly be. And it wouldn't have been Edward. It would have been his wife, Lady Grey, the queen, who would have planted that. Because, you remember how treacherous she was, back in the day and all that sort of thing. He's like, it has to be her that's turning him against you. He's like, I'm sure that you'll be fine, and this will all be discovered to be a mistake. Because, there's so many Georges in the world. How could it possibly be you that would kill your brother? And Clarence is like, yeah, I guess that's the thing. So he goes off to jail, and Richard is sort of like, ha 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 ha. And then it turns out Lord Hastings, who was Lord Chamberlain, Hastings, Chamberlain, same guy, one's a title, one's a name, comes in. He has just been released from prison. And Richard's like, oh, hey, you've just been released from prison. How you doing? And like, how's the world? And Hastings is like, well, the king is like really sick, like really, really sick. He might die very soon. And Edward is like, oh, well, I hope he doesn't die too soon. You're okay. Hastings is gonna go off and see him, so Richard is like, I'll be right behind you. And then he's got a little bit more to say before we finish up with Act 1, Scene 1, but that's gonna be tomorrow's monologue. So, yay! Thank you for joining me for Richard III. We're gonna have fun with this play. I'll see you tomorrow for more. Mwah.